These earphones are made for two completely different kinds of people, but at some point in the past, both have impressed me on a sound front. So I thought I'd pit them against one another so that you can decide whether or not either one is for you. If you would like to see my in-depth reviews about each of these earphones, I will leave their link down in the description below. So without further ado, let's jump straight into how these are built. On an overall build front, both of them are very similar because both have matte finishes and both cases are small enough and easy to hold so you can put them in your pockets or bag. Don't expect these to show many scuffs or scratches anytime soon because I have had the JBL 230NC for a little over a year and it's faring fairly well over all this time. It does have a few scratches and scuffs at the back of it because of resting it on the table, but if you are a little bit careful with these cases, they're bound to not show as many scratches and scuffs as a glossy case would. Both of them have USB-C charging and LED lights to show how much charge they hold. Comfort-wise, the Yamaha is more of an in-ear style design but isn't uncomfortable to wear, especially because they've provided 4 sets of ear tips, so it's easy to find the perfect fit. The JBL has a less aggressive in-ear design. It sits a little out of the ear with the ear tip sealing the ear canal, so isn't as intrusive as the Yamaha. Considering I never liked in-ear designs, I thought I wouldn't like the Yamaha, but it's not caused me any discomfort or pain. A small make or break factor for you could be that the Yamaha has an IPX5 rating, whereas the JBL has an IPX4 rating. On a feature front, the Yamaha has Bluetooth version 5.0, the JBL has Bluetooth version 5.2, the Yamaha offers tactile buttons whereas the JBL offers touch controls. I do prefer tactile controls since there are fewer accidental inputs, but having said that, I've never had any input issues with the JBL. It's quite responsive, but the tactile buttons on the Yamaha do make me feel a little more connected to them and my music. Both have app support, but the Yamaha is quite limited compared to the JBL's headphone app. The Yamaha only lets you toggle between having listening care on and off, and you can decide whether or not it should go off in certain intervals, whereas the JBL has a plethora of things you can control, from the active noise cancelling to gesture controls to modifying an equalizer to even being able to find your earphones if you lose them. When it comes to active noise cancelling, it is only the JBL that offers that. Now, it's a pretty good system. It's not the most aggressive noise cancelling that there is in the market compared to some other earphones, but it is good enough. It manages to eliminate droning noises from your fans or engines that are close by. So it's perfect if you want to mute a little of the world around you. Whereas when it comes to the Yamaha in particular, it only has passive isolation, and I have to say that the passive isolation on this is quite good because I was doing a call test recently when I was talking about the long-term report of the E3B in particular, and while I was standing near a very busy street, I couldn't hear very much of the traffic going past because the way the earphones are actually built, the way the tips seal, and the fact that it's an in-ear design ensures that it seals out the world quite well. When it comes to the call quality of these, the JBL has 2 microphones per earbud, giving you a total of 4 microphones, and the Yamaha only has 1 microphone per earbud, giving you a total of only 2. So when it comes to calls in particular, when it comes to the environmental noise cancelling, I find the Yamahas to fall a little short because they're not able to eliminate a lot of the noise around you, so that does carry over to your recipient, whereas the JBL does do a pretty good job there. But what I do like about the Yamaha is that it does carry your vocal tonality in a much truer form than the JBL does. But instead of me rambling on about what I think about it, it's time for you to sit in the reviewer seat and see which one you think is better suited for you. I'm calling you from the very busy street that I usually do a lot of these call tests from, and in fact there's a lot of office going traffic right now, a lot of 4-wheelers, 2-wheelers, and you will get the occasional truck passing by with a pressure horn, and there is in fact some construction work going on over my left shoulder as well. So this is of course the worst kind of situation you'll ever be in if you're out on a run near a busy street. So expect these earphones to be battling quite a lot when it comes to dealing with this environmental noise cancelling. So I have been on the camera microphone all this time just so you get an idea of the amount of noise over here. So I'll switch over to the Yamaha E3B right about now. So this is the overall tonal clarity that will carry over to your recipients, to the Yamaha in particular. Now, I don't think it does particularly well with isolating certain noises, as I mentioned. Its environmental noise cancelling is quite limited because it really does have only 1 microphone per earbud, whereas you do need a secondary mic to handle that. And the Yamaha isn't exactly cut out very well for environmental noise cancelling or any features for that matter. Yamaha has focused largely on the way these sound. This has been the demo for the Yamaha E3B, and I'll switch over to the JBL 230NC right about now.
And as you can tell, there is a difference between the E3B and the 230NC, primarily because this does have four microphones in total. That's two microphones per earbud. So it is able to isolate my voice over all this noise behind me significantly better than the Yamaha does. So this is, of course, the worst kind of situation that your voice will be carried over to your recipient in. But if you are in a more controlled environment like an office or even at home, it's bound to carry your voice over to your recipient that much clearer without all of this noise. So you are sitting in the reviewer seat too. So it's best if you decide which one you prefer and which one you'd like your voice carried over as. So I hope these demos have given you a little more clarity and understandings about these earphones, and I will see you back in the studio.
Here's where the scale starts tipping over slightly to the other side. Both the Yamaha and JBL have 6mm dynamic drivers, so they should be equally matched. But when it comes to the codecs that they support, both support SBC and AAC codecs, but the Yamaha also supports the aptX codec, so it should give you access to higher resolution audio. And both of them have a frequency response of as low as 20 Hz and go all the way up to 20,000 Hz. On a volume front, both of these are fairly comfortable at about 50% volume, but the lower you go in volume, the JBL loses its roundedness. It's happiest at about 45 or 50%, and you can go beyond that if you'd like to. Whereas the Yamaha sounds good and rounded all the way down at even 30% volume. This is part reason because Yamaha uses something called listening care, which ensures a slight elevation in the highs and the lows, so you don't have to keep looking for a sweet spot at higher volumes. This in turn will help preserve your hearing because you're not going to be playing your music at a very loud volume. When it comes to the soundstage, these are surprisingly quite different. The JBL has a distinct left and right channel with a good center phantom channel, but when it comes to the Yamaha, it also does have a very distinct left and right channel with a good center, but it has a very distinct horizontal sweep between your left and right channels, and you're able to pick out certain instruments within that range. Unlike where the JBL just feels like 3 channels, this has a terrific reach from left to right. At times, both these earphones can give you the illusion of some tones coming from further out of them, but this does happen very rarely. But the Yamaha does give you more of a sense of realism. When it comes to their imaging, both the Yamaha and JBL do pretty well, but it's the Yamaha that comes out with finer and more detailed edges, whereas the JBL tends to feel a little muddled in its delivery. Timbre or the naturality of sound for vocals and instruments goes entirely to the Yamaha because it stays to a much truer form of presenting all the frequencies that come to you. The JBL does not sound as true for sure. High frequencies from the JBL are prominent, but they seem a bit veiled compared to the Yamaha. Brushes on a snare, soft cymbal hits, percussion, anything in this frequency range somehow cuts through with much more detail and prominence compared to the JBL, without piercing at any point. The Yamaha has a tightness in this range that the JBL seems to fall behind with. The JBL seems a bit lethargic, like it didn't want to be out at this party. Listening to Jeff Goldblum and the Mildred Snitzer Orchestra perform My Baby Just Cares For Me, featuring Haley Reinhardt, every instrument that exists within this high frequency range is delivered to you quite effortlessly with the Yamaha, as if it's been a long time aficionado of this range. Then when you shift over to the JBL, this range does come across as being a bit muted and can tend to rob the fun out of this track. On its own, it's a good performer in this range, but when you put it up against the Yamaha, you start seeing where it could have been tuned to be a little richer in its delivery. Mid frequencies is where the JBL makes it more obvious that it's following some aggressive tuning variant of the Harman curve. It tends to be more on the sibilant side compared to the Yamaha. It's not always doing this. It does it more so with recordings that are upper mid-range happy. Mid-range separation isn't as pronounced as with the Yamaha. Instruments and vocals tend to merge into one another with the JBL. The Yamaha, on the other hand, carries instruments and vocals to you as separate entities and goes above and beyond this depending on whether you're listening to a good recording. Listening to Foreigners, I Want to Know What Love Is. One of the most beautiful parts of this track is when the New Jersey Mass Choir joins in for the chorus. The JBL presents the choir in the distance almost as a single voice, which some people will prefer. But then when I switched to the Yamaha, its presentation opens up this choir in layers, almost like you can distinguish each vocal section by itself. The level of layering and detail detail that the Yamaha pulls off comes very close to how some budget audiophile IEMs would present well-recorded music to you. Low frequencies are presented quite differently to you despite both these earphones having 6mm drivers. The JBL has a heft and a larger-than-life approach in its delivery in this range. If you like big, heavy and prominent bass, the JBL is the way to go. It certainly sounds as if this frequency is coming to you from a much larger driver. But if your taste in bass isn't the kind you want in your face, the Yamaha has a calmer, composed, tighter and smoother delivery than the JBL. It's not exaggerated but stays truer to what your music would sound like without color. It plays back genres like jazz, blues, rock and anything with natural instruments with a terrific sense of trueness in its delivery, whereas the JBL tends to go a little overboard, which can work better for workouts. But having said that, the Yamaha doesn't fall short at all. I was surprised to see that it in fact can hit sub-low frequencies just as well as the JBL. It just does it with a little more class. Listening to Cold Heart by Elton John and Dua Lipa, the JBL remains to be the absolute fun sounding set of earphones in this range with an overabundance of bass that a lot of people will enjoy for workout sessions. But the Yamaha dials it back ever so slightly and in the process is able to give you a much better definition in this range. This level of detail will be appreciated more so with acoustic instruments rather than anything electronic. An advantage you have with the JBL app is that you do get an EQ preset and settings you can play around with. You do get a few presets that you can choose from, but the manual EQ is where all of the control lies. Now, there are certain things you can do like dial certain frequencies low or increase them, but the overall characteristics of it will not change. Don't expect to improve detail and clarity. It boils down to how the driver has been tuned, and in this case, I'd say if you're looking for absolute purity in sound and clarity, the Yamaha is the way to go. So to sum up, both of these are built pretty well. I wouldn't say that either one is lacking. Both of them are pretty premium sets of earphones because both of them have a very high MRP, so they haven't skipped on the build for sure. They both feel pretty good to the touch. They're very responsive, be it tactile or touch controls. I haven't had problems with either of these earphones really in the past many months that I've been using them. Both have not failed when it comes to a build front at all. On a feature front, if you're one of those people who wants earphones more for features, the JBL is obviously the one to go for. It's got everything. Now, I think features are terrific when it comes to the novelty of having a new set of earphones, because at least for those first few days, you're going to be fiddling with the app to figure it out, and you're going to want to tune your EQ settings to, just enjoy different kinds of tunings from it in particular. So it does make sense if you like that novelty, but at some point it wears out, because the one thing you use the most with any set of earphones is the way it sounds, because you're consuming your media through that, be it YouTube or movies you've got on your phone or iPad or computer. So I place more importance on the sound in particular. I know a lot of you are going to like the JBL because it's a one-stop shop. It's the most convenient thing out there because it's got the active noise cancelling. It's got a whole bunch of features on the app. If you don't want noise cancelling, you can switch it off. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do. Like it does have the novelty. But if you're looking at it from a sound front, I have to say that the Yamaha is a cut above this JBL. In fact, while doing A/B testing between both these earphones, it felt as if Yamaha had gone through the effort of trying to fine-tune every element that somebody's going to try and look out for. So I do feel very strongly that if you are somebody who has a set of IEMs that you've been listening to and in the budget segment, this would be a terrific set to invest in. If you don't want too much of a difference between your IEMs and your wireless setup, because a lot of people who do listen to IEMs for the clarity don't want wireless earphones because it sounds flatter, it's not as enjoyable, it's not as detailed, there isn't as much stage, there isn't as much separation between instruments and vocals. The Yamaha seems to eliminate that problem completely, because in fact when I was planning on doing that wireless earphone versus affordable IEMs, I originally picked up the Yamahas to compare it to some IEMs that I have to see how they stand up. And honestly, when I first heard them, I realized that I didn't have content that I could make, because there was maybe a 5 to 8 or 10% difference between the IEMs and the Yamaha. So in fact, when I did realize that the other set of earphones that I picked up was the JBL, it did give me a sense of being able to make that content. So that video is out if you do want to watch it. But the JBL just doesn't stand up to that level of detail recovery. The JBL, at least this generation of JBL, when it comes to the 230NC, I don't think they were as focused when it comes to the sound, because it's more about being a bigger, louder sounding set of earphones. They've not really dialed it in and tried to make focus on clarity so much. It's more about the features, and yes, okay, we'll give you big bass, we'll give you big sound, and honestly a lot of people like that sound. So if you do want a heaviness in sound and all the other bells and whistles, the JBL makes a lot of sense. Whereas if you want to step into better clarity, you want to enjoy your music a little better, you want to be able to zone into certain nuances you've not heard before, the Yamaha is the way to go. And in fact, I like the Yamaha because it will introduce a lot of people into the audiophile hobby. You'll be able to understand what detail and clarity, what good detail recovery is, despite being a wireless set of earphones. And I'd highly recommend. So how much do these earphones cost? Well, at the time of recording this video, the JBL has an MRP of 7,999, but it has a selling price of 5,899. Whereas the Yamaha has a maximum retail price of 8,490, but it has a selling price of 5,600 rupees. Now, I have seen it today, in fact, for 4,370. This is a different color. I think it's a pink one. Now, whether you buy a blue or pink or a black one, the characteristics of the sound isn't going to change at all. So if you're okay picking up a pink, I'd say it's terrific value for money, because at that price, getting that level of sound, I think in a wireless form, I don't think you can get it anywhere else. At least I've not heard other wireless earphones that are precise and pristine in their sound reproduction. So the next question you may be asking is, are these value for money? Well, it's a matter of perspective, because if you want all the bells and whistles and you're willing to spend as much as the JBL costs, yeah, sure, the JBL is definitely more value for money. But if your priority is sound and you're going for the JBL, I don't think you'll feel that you've gotten any worth out of your money in particular, because if you were to sit and do A/B testing, and I'm not talking about sitting and doing a superficial test where you pop it in for 10 seconds and pop that in. No, sit and listen to the JBL 230NC for a good 10 minutes to 20 minutes, and then listen to the E3B for a good 10-20 minutes, and then keep bouncing between the two. It's very apparent which one is better on a sound front. So I'd say if sound is your absolute priority, pick up the E3B, because you're not going to regret it. And if you happen to hear different nuances and other details that you've never heard in your music before, you can thank me in the comments below. So I do hope you found this video helpful and informative, and I hope I've helped you make some sort of purchase decision. If you would like to help the channel, I'm sure you know exactly how to. But of course, thank you for tuning into Paul's POV for some sound advice.